the thing is, I knew long ago, I knew I was going to write a book. But the interesting thing is that most of what ended up in the book, I had not lived yet. And then when I realized that it was time to write it, time to tell my story, I became very afraid. And for many years, I ran away from it. I started it and ran away, started it and ran away, because memoir writers tend to live twice. And to be honest, the first time was really so horrible that I just thought there's no way I could do this again. But I did it because it became bigger than me.
You are now listening to the highlight reel builder for authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer and author of the best-selling book, Stay the Course, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some goodies today from the guest that's up next. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors, known as the Going North podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, because my goodness, like this wonderful guest right here, man, this has been, my goodness, this is probably 4 years in the making. Some say good things come to those who wait. And I'm at least be 4 years late as a play on the old Kanye West song. Because today's author in particular, my goodness, met this wonderful lady with her beautiful, bright eye shining self about 4 years ago at the Baltimore Book Festival, selling her wonderful book when she had one of those tables, and finally getting a chance to sit down and go through the book. There's one word out of many to describe today's guest, and that is a warrior, folks. That's right, a warrior. Because she's been through a lot, and she's still alive and kicking, and she's been through a lot, and she's still a living, breathing inspiration for folks, because she is a yoga therapist, a mental health advocate, and a fellow author from the DMV area. So let's give it up for the sensational and lovely Suzanne Ludlum. How you doing today, Suzanne?
Hi, Dom. I'm just great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Oh, the excitement is real. That's right. Finally got you here, and finally made the time. Finally was able to get things straightened out, the calendar, issues like a magazine, and it's finally happening. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, as you know, with all introductions, you know they're not allowed to be 17 days and 30 seconds long. So mind filling in any cavities I missed about you?
No, you pretty much covered it. I am a yoga therapist, and I specialize in working with people who have trauma histories in particular, and in a broader sense, mental health issues, mental health challenges, and started about 15 years ago, I guess, and just been kind of working in the field ever since, and hopefully helping a lot of people. And it's rewarding, it's challenging, it can be heartbreaking, of course, but what else is life? This is life. This is real. You know, we meet people and we hear their stories, and if we're not scared away, then we meet them where they are and we sit with them and we hold space. And sometimes that's what people need.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That magical space, indeed. Because my goodness, funny enough, I believe with the yoga that came to you probably a few decades ago after finding about some magical TM.
Well, yes, I was formally trained in meditation when I was at the very young age of 16. And the style of meditation I learned was mantra meditation, specifically transcendental meditation, TM. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with that. I was assigned a mantra, and I still have it, and I still use it. And since then, I've learned different styles of meditation, and I practice those when the need calls for it. So yes, that was a very long time ago. And then about 23 years ago, is when I stumbled into my first yoga class. And that really was the beginning of a new trajectory for me.
Oh wow, that's right. 23 years ago. My goodness. Some would call that a lifetime nowadays, right?
For a lot of people, it is a lifetime. And to me, it was like yesterday.
Oh yeah, that's right. Like
Yeah.
yesterday it did. So my goodness. So with all of the yoga and the wonderful mantra meditation, is it still a secret to you now? Because I remember reading through your book, it's like you were given a specific mantra and you're really supposed to keep that to yourself. Is that still true for you and a lot of other folks who've been trained in that, or is that something that's changed over the years?
I can't speak for anyone else, Dom, but I will say that no, I have never shared my mantra with anyone. I've never spoken it out loud. And at the time, it wasn't explained to me exactly the reason why it's not to be spoken out loud. However, what makes sense to me is that in the teachings, a mantra is it's essentially it's a sound vibration. And if you speak it out loud and you put it out there into space, it it takes on an identity. Kind of like, not unlike, and this is a poor example, so forgive me, not unlike saying the word pencil, pencil, pencil. What comes to mind? You think of a pencil and the object, a pencil. But if you repeat it often enough, it loses its identity as being this long, skinny object, and it just becomes a sound. But a mantra begins that way, and it stays that way as long as you don't speak it out loud verbally.
Wow. Kind of reminds me of the radio where you hit, where the DJs play a song for the same song an hour total. Like probably like 30, 50 times on the radio. You're like, okay, I like it. And then you hear it again for another hour. I was like, all right, I hate the song now. So I guess that kind of goes with that when you drop that example.
Well, it loses its value.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then the yoga itself, the actual physical yoga practice and all the teachings that come with it really didn't come until many, many years after that. And by that time, I had already gone through the worst times of my life, and I was already on an upward momentum mentally. However, when I discovered yoga, I didn't go to my first class because I heard that it was great for mental health. That really wasn't, they didn't go hand in hand back then. So 23 years ago is not that long ago, but in the spectrum of our modern living, it is forever ago. I truthfully went to my first yoga class because I needed a physical outlet to deal with just a bad marriage that I had recently gotten into. Plus, I heard that Madonna did yoga and she had really buffed, truth be told. And I had these spindly little skinny arms and I wanted to get buff biceps. So I started doing yoga. But I have to say that after that very first class, I walked out and I sat in my car and thought, okay, something's missing. I just felt that something was missing. And I took inventory of all of my things. I had all of my things. And I sat for a while longer and realized what was missing was my anger.
Mm.
And that was significant to me because I had carried through my worst mental decline and being at the bottom, the abyss of my existence mentally and emotionally. What came out of that, the aftermath, was I was able to function and I was able to get out of my depression, not only, well, through a couple of modalities, very good therapy, because I had very bad therapy in the beginning, and medication. You know, people ask me, well, did yoga save your life? No, yoga didn't save my life. Prozac saved my life. But yoga, truthfully, yoga keeps me off the edge. Out of bed, keeps me out of the hospital. It helps me maintain an equilibrium. But in the aftermath of the deepest depression that I had been coming out of was a lot of anger about what happened to me, anger about the experiences, anger about family situations, a lot of anger. And after that first class, I didn't feel it nearly to the extreme that I was used to living with. So I went back for another class, and I went back for another one. And it didn't take very long for me to really get hooked. And then while I said, this is a really cool thing, this thing they call yoga, but I don't understand it, because if I was asked, well, exactly what is yoga? Can you explain to me what it is? I really couldn't explain to people what it was. So I decided at that time, let me study it. So I entered into a teacher training, not ever wanting to or having the intention of teaching a class, but at the end of my foundation level training, I was put in front of a class and I started teaching and just fell in love with it. And then one thing led to another, and over time, I got more training and more advanced certification. And then finally, I got my master's degree in yoga therapy. Kind of to, I guess, validate what I had already been doing for a long time, which is working with people who have mental health issues.
That's right.
So that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
That's right. And after reading your book, it's like you probably got 8-pack abs and helping folks with their mental issues because of all the stuff you've been through.
I don't know so much about the abs, but I think what's really, the physical benefits, that's a byproduct. That's really a byproduct of a yoga practice. And I hesitate to say it, but I really do feel that yoga, the practice and the tradition of yoga, has been diluted down so much in this country by the marketing of it, by the commercialization of it, that it's at risk for losing its roots, and it's at risk for losing its purity.
Oh, yeah, you could definitely say that again. I think on one of our past guests, I believe Dr. Allison J.K. actually mentioned how yoga, she actually learned that it was actually trained to open up I believe, the 7 wheels, the chakras, I believe, or is there 8 chakras?
There are actually a lot more than 7, but yeah, there's 7 major ones.
Or at least, yeah, the 7 major ones at least. Yes, indeed. So, yeah, you're so right about that. And I'm guessing you probably know deeper about that part of yoga as well. That's probably not taught a lot nowadays when folks go to regular yoga classes and they get just the bare minimum just to get started, maybe.
Yes, you're right. A typical yoga class, and there are a lot of very, very good yoga teachers out there, and there are a lot of very good yoga classes. My view is the majority of teachers are trained, stop their training at the foundation level. You need 200 hours of training to be certified to teach yoga. After I got my 200-hour level certification, I realized that, okay, I thought I knew a whole lot, but I don't know anything. Relatively speaking, I felt like there's so much more I needed to know to really understand this and to really teach it the way it's supposed to be taught. And that includes not just the physical poses and the movements and the vinyasa flows. It involves a lot of the mind part of the mind-body practice. And at least with the yoga classes that I've attended, and I travel a lot, and I usually find yoga classes to go to, the mind part of the mind-body practice is left out. And what's happening is people are missing the most valuable part. That's the part that really healed me. And that's the part that really healed my mental illness. And it still does. When I went through my period of depression, it was long. It was over a decade long. And it felt at the time that it was completely unrecoverable. And I can say that no, I have not been that depressed for a very, very long time, but like everyone else, I live within the full spectrum of human emotion, and that includes sometimes it includes sadness and despair. Now, I don't want to confuse sadness with depression because they're two different things. You can be sad and not depressed. You can be depressed really and not be sad. But depression is a very horrible place to be. It's a terrible place to be in your mind, in your life. But when I find that I'm on those rare occasions now, when I feel like I may start to be falling back into a depression, I go right to the mat and I practice my meditation and I practice my breathing, pranayama practices, and I practice self-awareness and I practice self-inquiry. And I move my body. So yes, I do the physical practices as well.
Ah, I love it. I love it indeed. My goodness, my goodness. That's what I'm talking about. Keeping that movement, keeping that body moving. That's right.
Mhm.
Extending the youth, keep yourself young for a long time. And also more importantly, the mind piece as well. That's not taught around. And that probably could heal a lot more people. And I feel like that's probably the reason why yoga is getting as much marketing as it does, because it can really help. Like physical activity can help, but especially if it's tailored to really specially help folks with their mind, because that's probably another reason why mindset is a buzzword nowadays, because like a lot of folks, they've just been beaten by society, beaten by the traumas of their childhood, or like even the traumas of their daily lives they may be going through right now. So it's really good that you mentioned that piece, and I'm glad that it really saved your life and is continuing to keep you alive and strong.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And I value it. I'm grateful for it. I practice almost every day. And part of my work is to raise the level of awareness of mental health and actually mental illness, at least in our culture, because even after all this time, there's still a stigma. There's still a lot of shame around mental illness. There's still a lot of shame and embarrassment and isolation around depression. You know, Alzheimer's is on the rise. Dementia is on the rise. Look at what's been going on in this country, well, in the world in the last 18 months. People are isolated. They don't have that human interaction, that human contact. And doing a Zoom meeting or FaceTime is not the same. It's better than nothing, but it's not the same. So I don't know what the statistics are now, but as of 2 years ago, mental health or depression in particular was like the #2 global health crisis. I would wager to bet that it's #1 at this point. What I'm also grateful for at the same time is that we are talking about it more. So we are talking about it. We are taking it out of the closet, so to speak. And that's really where healing starts, is getting the conversation started. Get people to talk. There's a Sufi poet that's quoted a lot in the yoga circles, and his name is Rumi. He lived maybe 500 or 600 years ago. Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah, you quoted him a lot in your book too. So love Rumi, good stuff.
I did, yeah. Well, he talks about this thing called an open secret. And what this open secret is the shame and the embarrassment and the isolation that people feel living their lives, living out in the world, but feeling like they are completely alone. It's open because most of us, at least at times, experience it, but it's a secret because we're too ashamed and we're too embarrassed to talk about it. So what I'm talking about is you see someone at the supermarket, somebody you know really well, and you say, hey, how are you doing? You strike up a conversation. How are you doing? How are the kids? How's the new job? Did you get your move settled in yet? And you have this basically a superficial conversation. And yet on the inside, you're thinking, I'm in so much pain. I'm dying. I hope they don't see it. I can't tell them how I really am feeling. They're not going to get it. They're not going to understand. But the truth of the matter is, yes, they would, because chances are they feel the same way, at least at times. So when we can start talking about it, when we can start saying, I've been struggling with depression lately, that's getting the conversation started. And the person who's hearing this doesn't have to have any answers, doesn't have to fix anything. You know, all they have to do is say, I'm so sorry. Is there something I could do to help you? Let's go have coffee. Come here. Put your stuff in the car. Let's go have coffee. Let's go have a cup of tea. I want to hear what's going on. And not play the role of the therapist, but play the role of the person holding space for the person in pain. And I'll tell you, that can do a lot to pull someone out of it. Just knowing you're not alone. When I was 21 and I was first very depressed, it's when the clinical depression hit me in my life. I was so ashamed of how I felt, and I felt so isolated and so lonely that when I went to my first therapy appointment, I didn't tell anyone in the world I was going. I told no one. And as it turns out, I should have, because this therapist was very unprofessional, very destructive, and essentially he was a criminal, and he exhibited criminal behavior towards me. So I should have told someone, but how was I to know? I didn't know at the time. My point is that if I had said to someone, I'm in so much pain and I don't know why, and I don't know what this is called. I didn't know that I was in a depression. I didn't know I was suffering from depression, because that was back at a time where nobody talked about it, even less than they talk about it now. Fortunately, and I'm going to say especially young people, are not, they're not as hesitant to say that they're in therapy, to say that they are, have an eating disorder, to say that they may have experienced some suicidal ideations. I know young people who have said that to me. That doesn't mean that they're going to do anything about it destructive wise. That doesn't mean that they're going to act on it. But saying that this is what I'm feeling and this is what I'm thinking and this is what I'm experiencing is reaching out for help. So the listener, the person on the receiving end, can say, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I will help you. I'll sit with you. We have to get the stigma gone. We have to have it disappear. We need to get people who are ashamed. We need to get these people out of the closet, so to speak, and talking more. Because really, that's where the healing begins. We can't heal if we can't talk about it. We can't heal if we can't breathe, and we can't heal if we can't just acknowledge our humanness and say, yes, it's okay to experience this full spectrum of emotion. It's impossible to live life not experiencing the full spectrum of emotion. You can go from white hot anger to total bliss and joy and everything in between. And that's just called living. That's just called being human.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. Definitely got to acknowledge our humanness. And you're so right, especially with all that anger that you're holding in during the years and all of those other emotions that you had bottled up over the years, it's like that's never healthy for anybody. Just gotta find a way to release them and just find that someone who is a true professional, that is, or a trusted friend that you actually trust to be able to allow you to have some space to be able to really share and vent a bit so that way they don't bottle it all up. Heck, even journaling as well, which I'm pretty sure you probably did a lot of in your lifetime and still probably do.
I don't do it as much these days, but yes, I did it a lot. And then the culmination of that was the book. And I just wanted to mention momentarily that the reason I wrote this book is because I truly believe that if I could go through and endure everything that I did in those earlier years and not only survive it, but come out thriving, eventually rebuilding and eventually thriving. If I can go from the deepest, darkest place that is I ever beyond my imagination could find myself and come out and have a wonderful life with a wonderful family and make something of my life, if I can do it, other people can too. Because when I was going through the worst of those times, I really felt like that was my end. That was going to be the end of my story. It was never going to get any better. Even if I did survive, even if I did live, it was never going to get any better. I believed it because I saw no way out and no one to help me. And there, at the time, there was no one to help me. So I really want people to know that if you are going through it, whoever said it, when you're going through hell, keep going. Exactly. Keep going, because it's not your end. It's not the end of your story. Your story can go on for a really, really long time, and it could be an absolutely beautiful story.
Ah, yes, indeed. A beautiful story indeed. And you're so right, because you went through some hell. And that's probably an understatement for those who pick up this book and read it, because I almost broke down into tears reading this book. And it's one heck of a powerful story. And just, yeah, she's been through a lot and still have to tell the tale about it and helping others to really know more about mental health and just really keeping their mind healthy, because brain care is definitely needed nowadays, especially with all things going on. Heck, even with childhood trauma as well, because like reading through your book, like so many things popped up with some of the themes and some of the situations. Heck, even with a lot of childhood trauma with your younger brother at the time, with the stuff that he had to deal with stuff that really was very painful and couldn't find a way to deal with it. So like it's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of stuff in there that'll make you may think of your own family members you may have or that friend you may know that be going through something. So definitely pick up a copy or 25 of An Imperfect Pilgrim by Suzanne Ludlum indeed. So my goodness. So with all that journaling, even though it's not as much happening today, is there anything else you do for some good brain care, Suzanne?
Well, before we get on to that, I just do want to mention that it's the book itself is in paperback and hardbound, but probably the time that this show airs, it will be on audio as well.
Woohoo!
Okay. For people who like to listen to audiobooks. To answer your question, is there anything I do for brain care? Well, I happen to live, I'm blessed and lucky enough to live in an area where there's a lot of nature around me. There are woods behind my house, and beyond the woods is a beautiful lake. And when I'm having a bad mental health day, I go into nature and I sit by the water, or I go into the woods and I listen to the sounds of the forest, or I sit on my deck and I watch the deer run by. Do something to connect to nature. I think energetically and on a cellular level, humans share a similar energy vibration with nature. And I think that that's why we are drawn to it so much. And I think that's why we're drawn to water so much. That's probably why waterfront property is so darn expensive. There's something very healing about it. So I do that. Like I said, I do yoga, have my yoga practice almost every day, several times a week. I don't watch the news. I don't listen to the news because it feeds a kind of it's toxic. If there is something I listen to, it's a good NPR program. One of my favorite programs is Fresh Air with Terry Gross. I've been listening to her for probably 20 years. And she has wonderful scientists, wonderful authors, wonderful playwrights, wonderful people who have stories. And that's what I'm drawn to, is I'm drawn to people and their stories, because I really feel like every life is a story to be told.
Yeah, that's right. Indeed. Every life is a story to be told. Indeed. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. You decided to put yours in the paper, y'all. That's right.
yeah.
That's right. Indeed. That's right. She's in the business of immortality, baby. That's what I'm talking about. You're so right about that nature, too. Heck, even sometimes, on occasion, going barefoot. It's probably a benefit if you find some ground that you're comfortable going barefoot in just for a bit, just to take in that nature. So you're so right about us humans loving nature, especially with the waterfront properties. Like, yeah, let's stare at some water. Oh, darn bank account. I gotta put some more green in there first before I even attempt to buy some waterfront property. Or just try to live close to it as possible.
Well, we didn't buy the waterfront property. We bought the property and then they put the water in afterwards. So we kind of got it. But I like that you mentioned going barefoot, because that's something called earthing or grounding. And I do that a lot outside. I walk barefoot as much as I can, because what happens is you're connecting. You've got all of these thousands and tens of thousands of nerve endings on the soles of your feet, and you're connecting to the earth, to Mother Earth, and you're sharing that vibrational energy. It's almost like the earth is feeding your body. You're drawing it up into your body. Besides,
uh,
winter confining. You know, let those feet spread, let the feet spread.
oh yeah, that's right. See your feet as butter on bread when you're earthing, right?
Mhm. Yes, exactly.
Ah, although that's probably a bad metaphor for the summer. It's like, no, my feet are gonna melt.
Well,
Uh,
just stick to the grass and the dirt. Stay off the pavement.
oh man. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So with this wonderful book that you've written and published, and that's now going to be in audiobook form, which is awesome, especially for the blind folks too. Besides reliving those moments, what was probably the most challenging part of putting that book together?
Writing it, truth be told. The thing is, I knew long ago, I knew I was going to write a book. But the interesting thing is that most of what ended up in the book, I had not lived yet. And then when I realized that it was time to write it, time to tell my story, I became very afraid. And for many years, I ran away from it. I started it and ran away, started it and ran away, because memoir writers tend to live twice. And to be honest, the first time was really so horrible that I just thought there's no way I could do this again. But I did it because it became bigger than me. I used to hear people say, God spoke to me. And I have a personal relationship with God, but I have more of a spiritual outlook on everything. I don't practice any particular religion. It's more of a global spiritual kind of an approach. But I feel like God spoke to me and said, you need to do this. This is bigger than you. This is to serve. This book will serve. And when that message came through, and it took a while, but when it came through, I said, I have to do it now. And yes, it was very painful to write it, and it was very difficult, but it was a story that had to be told, because there was something in it that I truly believed would help people.
Oh, yeah. That's right, folks. If you got some painful stories and you get the wonderful voice from God or spirit or whatever that voice is to go for it, just go for it, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. That's right, indeed. This is a powerful book indeed. It's a powerful book indeed. My goodness. Because definitely one that's inspirational, one that's full of it's a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster to say the least. To say the least, indeed. A lot of stuff in there. So with having to relive it, and heck, even it's kind of interesting because going through the pages of the book, it's like I kind of figured out why you mentioned how you actually haven't really lived it yet. Is there any reason why you felt like you haven't lived that life until you actually sat down to really put it into book form?
Well, when I was 21, I knew I would write a book, but I really had no idea what it was going to be about. I knew I was going to write a book. Actually, that's not quite true. I knew it was going to have something to do with my life. But when I was 21, most of what went into the book had not been lived yet. It had not happened yet. And, you know, this is an example in my life anyway of, okay, life is bigger than what we know. You know, the world is bigger, not even the physical world, the spiritual world is all around us, and it is speaking to us. And I think that was spirit world speaking to me, saying, you will write about your life, but you have to live it first. And it's not something that I could identify or I could define at the time, but in hindsight, it became very clear.
Ah, beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. Clarity is a wonderful thing. Clarity is definitely a wonderful thing because that way you see where you're going. And it's like you may not have all the tools, the what yet, but you know your why. You got that clarity. It's like, okay, I can keep moving forward. I don't know why. It's like, heck, maybe even going on a metaphorical hitchhiking trip all the way across the country. Even though that might not be a good idea nowadays at all.
That wasn't a good idea, but it makes for a good story.
Oh yeah, definitely can say that again. So my goodness, so since this is far from your first rodeo, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often?
Oh, is there a question I wish to be asked more often? I guess the question that I would, if there's a question I would like to hear more, it would be, what would you say to people who are suffering so badly that they think there's no way out? And I guess my answer would be, there is a way out. There is a way out. There's a story that I heard a while ago, and it's a very brief story. I'll tell it here. And some of your listeners may be familiar with it, but this is just one of my favorite stories, and it's very applicable to our conversation here. And there was a man who was walking down the street, and he fell into a hole, and it was this really, really deep, very dark hole. And he's stuck at the bottom. There was no ladder, there was nothing. He couldn't get out. And after a while, a doctor walked by and he yelled up to the street level. He said, "Hey, doc, I've fallen into this hole and I can't get up. Can you help me?" So the doctor threw down a prescription. And a little while later, a priest walks by. And the man shouts up to the priest and he says, "Hey, Father, I've fallen into this hole. It's dark and it's deep and I can't get up. Can you help me?" And the priest threw down a prayer. A little while later, a friend walked by. So this friend walks by and the guy yells up, "Hey, buddy, can you help me? I've fallen into this hole and it's deep and it's so dark and I can't see my way out. There's no way out. Please help me." And the friend jumps down into the hole with him. And the first guy says, "What? Are you nuts? Are you crazy? Now we're both stuck down here." And the friend says, yeah, I know, but I've been here before and I know a way out. And that's
Ah,
what this is all about. That's what the book is about. That's what the work is about. That's what getting the conversation is all about. That's what is making Rumi's open secret no longer a secret. Because we all feel this way at times. We all experience it at times.
yeah, that's right. Probably my favorite version of that story so far. Yes, indeed. Funny enough, it reminded me of a meme I saw a couple days ago about Facebook memories. It was a bad one indeed. It was all about making sure you have the right friends. This story, I'm glad the story ended with the friend jumping in with them to help him out because the meme showed the guy in the bottom of the pit and the guy putting his arm out trying to help him out, even though knowing he was too far down, while the guy putting his arm in the pit had a ladder right next to him. And the
Oh,
caption said, "Be careful of who your friends really are."
very true. Very true.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, my goodness, one of my favorite lines that I underlined from the book is that we are programmed to survive. And the reason why I highlighted that, one, because it's a freaking good line from the book, and two, is the fact that even after the book was published a couple of years ago, you still had to go through some things, and you're probably like, oh God, why? Like, haven't I been through enough already? And you're still here alive to tell the tale. So I was sharing folks a bit about how Suzanne had to deal with well, the unmagical BC and still alive to tell about it and maybe offer some encouragement for those who are going through breast cancer at the moment.
Yes, 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And yes, I went through a period of intense anger and intense fear, of course, and the why me and the what haven't I had enough, the whole everything, all of it, went through all of it. And I've heard from a lot of people in the cancer circles that when you get a diagnosis of cancer, when cancer hits your body, it's a message. Well, I'm kind of not really sure if I've heard that message clearly yet. I'm open to it, but I will say that I spent several decades of my life with anger and with sadness and chronic stress. And my chronic stress really began when I was 12, and I developed a panic disorder. And it was crippling. And by the way, yoga cured it when I was 40 and I started yoga. So for 28 years, I lived with panic disorder, always fearful and running from the next panic attack. But I believe at this point I believe that really the cancer was caused by decades long chronic stress. Stress which causes inflammation, which changes your mitochondria, which changes changes your body on a cellular level. And that's when the cells start mutating and getting all wonky and become cancerous. And then it just takes off from there. And something that I've heard over and over again in my cancer journey is deal with your issues. Not people telling me personally, but we people who have experienced a cancer diagnosis, get into therapy, do something, deal with your issues. Because if we don't have some kind of peace, if we live with the chronic stress, it can chip away and eventually destroy our health.
Ah, yes, indeed. Thanks a bunch for sharing today. Something for the folks who may have those relatives who may be dealing with it, or heck, even them themselves may be dealing with it. So Definitely good to get that out there. So be on the lookout for that message. Keep your ears open, keep your eyes open. That's right. Keep your gut open too for that gut message that you know in your gut too, possibly, of what that cancer might be telling you if you're going through, or if someone else you know is going through it indeed. Because Suzanne, that's right, 2 years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, you probably conquered it at this point, right?
I'd like to believe I have. I still, it's an aggressive form, so I'm aggressive with it, and I'm doing a lot to try to stay ahead of it. And I'm about 11 months since my last treatment, and I'm going to give myself maybe another year and a half, and then I will exhale. I'm also going
uh,
to say, and you know what, Dom, this could be a topic for a whole nother podcast, but cancer does not have to be a death sentence. I know many people who are living with stage 4, or who have recovered from stage 4 20 years ago, diagnosed with stage 4, given 3 months to live, given 6 weeks to live, and they're still walking, talking, and thriving today.
Amen to that. That's
Yeah.
right. That's why I call this wonderful lady a warrior, y'all, because she's a fighter, y'all. That's right. That's right, indeed. Cancer gonna be gone, so gone. It's gonna be far gone. It's gonna be like in the Andromeda galaxy. That's how far it's gonna go away, y'all. I'm telling you. That's why we stay in this Milky Way right here. That's right. That's right, indeed. She's gonna be marvelous, and she'll be back for another round too. She'll probably have another book about it, baby.
Maybe. I think more, I think more time has to pass for me to mentally heal from this. For me, anyway, it's hard to write about something when I'm still living it because it's too raw, it's too fresh. So give it some time. I'll give it some time and then I'll reconsider, revisit.
Okay. All right. Cool. So I guess I have to write a children's book about penguins instead in the meantime, right?
Something like that.
That's right. Penguins doing yoga. That's right. Talk about how the penguins have a great mindset. That's right. That's right. Where they can get all the fish, get surviving all the ice. That's right. Make a giant statue of themselves and take on all the humans and maybe become friends with the humans. Yep. That's right.
Gee, that sounds like a book I read.
All right. So you're not going to do it. I got you.
Maybe it won't be penguins. Maybe it'll be something else.
Okay, fine. It'll be rhinos with butterfly wings. That's right. Yep. Because unicorns get enough marketing and publicity as we speak. So let's give it to the rhinos with the butterfly wings out there. That's right. The true,
Good.
unique, one of a kind thing. Oh man. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2021, with all of your knowledge, experience, and wisdom gained, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, okay. I'm not going to let your listeners hang on for too long before I answer that question. So let me give it a brief thought. What advice would I give to myself, to my 25-year-old self? I would say, as rough as things might get, don't give up. There's always hope. As long as you're breathing, there's life. As long as you're breathing, there's hope. I would say, choose your friends wisely. Know who your real friends are. Listen to your gut. That's probably most important. Well, but just as important is listen to your gut, because I can't tell you how many times ignoring my gut and swimming against the current got me into very deep trouble. Now, maybe the outcome was okay, but I believe I probably could have gotten that outcome without going through the pain had I listened to my gut. And that's something that I teach my daughters, especially daughters. If you're in a situation and it doesn't feel right, it ain't right. Get out. Our gut is our second brain. Our gut is also the seat of serotonin. I think 95% of the serotonin in our body is produced in our gut, not our brain. So the feel-good hormone, that's where it starts. But that's also where our second brain is. The butterflies, the gut feeling. It literally is a gut feeling. Listen to it. It will never lie. It will never steer you wrong. So that's what I would tell myself.
All right. So if you have a big belly, just tell yourself you have a lot of serotonin going on in your belly, folks. That's right. That's right, indeed. That's not what you said. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Listeners know I'm pretty corny. I admit my corniness. I embrace my corny jerk Colonel Kingdom title for that one. Yes, indeed. That's right. But it's all in good humor, just like the ice cream. That's right. It's all in good humor. That's right. Because it's rock solid advice, y'all. That's right. Second brain, the gut. That's right. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Heck, didn't even know about the serotonin levels in the gut stomach. Got to look into that even more now. That's freaking awesome. It's freaking awesome. That's right. That's the good thing about talking with fabulous humans like yourself. Get to learn something new every day. That's right. That's right, indeed. So for those who enjoyed listening to you as much as I did and want to grab the magical book, audio book, heck, maybe even buy the hardcover book for a friend of theirs and snag the audio book too. What's the best way for folks to keep up with the superstar? It's Suzanne herself.
Well, let's see. The book you can get on Amazon. You can get it through the publisher Balboa Press. You could probably order it through, I think it's still available through Barnes & Noble online. And the audio version will be available on Amazon and iTunes. So that's the book. But to keep up with me, just Google me, or my email is suzanne@trinityyogatherapy.com. And yeah, I'm pretty visible out there. So I'm easy to find.
Woohoo! That's what I'm talking about. Is any online yoga classes to look out for too, thanks to this COVID thing that we're still dealing with?
I'm not offering any online classes now. I did when COVID first started and then stopped those for a while. Have not picked them up again. But that is something I'm considering doing. It's kind of hard to do online. It's like it's like doing yoga with a videotape or a DVD. You really, okay, pandemic aside, and understandably people either can't or don't want to go to a group setting. But if you're able to go to a group setting or even work one-on-one with someone, that's the best way to do it. Because the teacher will see your moves, they'll see your position, they'll see if the teacher is well trained enough, if they're aware enough, then they'll be able to detect if you're holding your breath or if you're depressed, and what, like, if you go see a yoga therapist, and if they're a good therapist, what they'll do is they'll watch how you walk across the room. They'll look at how you stand, at your posture, and you can tell a lot about how someone is feeling emotionally and mentally and physically too, just from the way they walk, just from their posture. So in person is always better than virtual, but if you can't do in person, virtual is best. And there are a lot of online yoga classes. You just need to find a good teacher. And I can understand that people who don't have yoga experience might not know the difference, might not be able to recognize a well-trained from an okay trained teacher. But it's like that gut thing, if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. If it feels right, if there's flow, if there's resonance, then you're in the right place.
Woohoo! Sweet. Well, for those who've been listening, you've been in the right place, y'all. I'm telling you, that's right. That's right, indeed. Because Suzanne's a superstar, y'all. That's right. And she's got more to offer, y'all. So definitely keep up with all the stuff that she's doing, indeed, and cheer her on as she's moving through the magical life to continue being an inspiration for others. That's right, folks. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, any parting words before we close up shop, Suzanne?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about my story and my message. And it's not about me. It never was about me. It's about the people who are listening. It's about the people who read the book. It's about reaching out and just helping our fellow human being. We're all pilgrims. We're all pilgrims. We all need to help each other. And so I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to talk a little bit about, how I got to where I am and how I see the world. So thank you.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast. To do something that'll take yourself to the next level, and for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can not only catch the fire that is on this podcast, but can also be inspired to be their best. Advance others to advance yourself.